Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we're joined by Army Ranger and New York Times best-selling author, The Reaper, Nicholas Irving. Nick, we are so excited to have you on the show. I want to start off by obviously thanking you for serving our country. I'm going to let you kind of tell your story, but for people that don't know, you grew up with both of your parents serving in the military. I'm sure that was part of the inspiration to ultimately serve yourself. You were actually born in Germany. Tell me a little bit about growing up and what role your parents being in the military played in you getting in and how it all worked out.
Well, yeah, pretty much. My mom and dad, they were both in the Army. They served during the Cold War era. They were doing counterintelligence against the Russians, copying Morse code and stuff like that. And it's pretty much all they talked about while I was growing up. And as a child, that's what I remember hearing them. You know, they would speak in Morse code sometimes and dits and das. And yeah, it was interesting. Moved around a little bit, not as frequent as you know, other military families do, but from Germany, I went on to Florida, and I don't remember too much about Florida before we finally settled in Maryland, and that's where I spent most of my life. And seeing my mom and my dad get up to go to work, put on the uniform, that's kind of where it all started from for me. So putting on my dad's uniform, standing at the top of the stairs, and putting on his boots and falling down the stairs, and you know that was my childhood. And my dad was a big military buff. He loved watching History Channel and documentaries of military history. And that's kind of where it sparked for me before eventually he introduced me when I was old enough to watch Charlie Sheen's Navy SEAL movie and Chuck Norris Delta Force. And that's where my mind was blown and I was fully intrigued. And I was pretty much dead set on joining the military. I liked the cool bikes and rockets they had on their bikes and stuff. Never really got a chance to see one, but that was a spark.
Well, it sounds like you and my husband would get along well because he watched Top Gun as a kid and was convinced that he was going to be like a fighter pilot, obviously. He honestly, oftentimes, if there's ever anything to do with like fighter pilots, if Top Gun is on TV and we happen to catch it, which he knows every word to, he always goes, man, I should have been a fighter pilot. I kind of messed this up. But I feel like you guys could get along great, seeing that you were inspired as well, not just from your parents, but obviously watching these incredible movies. You initially wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I read about this, but you failed the colorblind test, which actually should have disqualified you for any infantry service. So how did you end up still serving? I read about this, but it's a very cool story.
Oh, yeah. So the first time I went to go take the Izihara test. It's a color vision book test with all these dots on it. I could hear people in front of me naming off numbers, and I looked at the paperwork, or I looked at the book, and I couldn't see anything. I thought it had something to do with distance. So when I got up there, the first page they turned to was the page you're not supposed to see a number. And I believe it was like 12 or something like that. So I called out that number, and the person who was administering the test kind of stared at me for a second and slowly turned the page, and everything after that I completely made up. It was calling out numbers and letters and stuff like that. So failed the test, completely failed it, cried about it. I came home and I studied as much as I could, every combination of the Izihara test, get the answers off the internet. I went back to take the test and they did not administer that test. It was a light color test with different color lights, and I couldn't see those. Cried again, but fortunately this Army nurse, she heard me crying and wanted to help out. So she traced out all the all the numbers with her finger on the color Izihara test, the colorblind test, and I was able to get a 14 out of 14. I still have the paperwork for it. 0 out of 14 to a 14 out of 14, like the first human in history to be naturally healed of colorblindness.
Wait a minute, but you had no idea up until that point that you were colorblind. I guess a lot of people might not. Is that right? How old were you when this happened?
I was 17. I kind of had an idea. My mom at least did. My socks would never match. I would wear purple pants, or I would pick it out. My mom wouldn't let me wear it, but she kind of had an idea that I had something wrong with my eyes, but I was never really able to match clothes. That's why I wear dark clothing now.
And what is the rationale between for somebody serving in infantry having to not have color blindness? What happens that you would need to be able to see colors so clearly? Is it the uniforms of the other soldiers, or what's the reason for that?
I've always asked that question too. I think it has to do with the uniforms, or maybe how things appear on the night vision. I'm not really sure, but I never had to diffuse any wires to a bomb or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I guess, that might come in handy if you're cutting wires and you don't want to get the blue one or the green one or whatever it might be. Interesting. Well, despite that, and I actually want to ask you, did you ever find out, like, that nurse, do you know who she is?
No, I still have the paperwork for it. I just can't read her hand signature. But eventually, one day, I'm sure, the way the universe works, our paths will eventually cross again.
That's so cool. What a crazy story. And because of this nurse, you ultimately became a U.S. Army Ranger sniper, and you got the name Reaper because you have, your kill record, not to get too, graphic or whatever, but that's why you got the name. You have you're one of the deadliest snipers around, and you got the name Reaper. Had it not been for that nurse, I don't even know. What do you think would have happened to you?
To be honest, I would have been stuck in Maryland, I think, working, I don't know, at Jiffy Lube or something. That's where everybody who I grew up with seemed to end up working. It wasn't like a really great environment. So most of the guys that I knew were either in jail or are no longer on this earth. So I'm glad it turned out the way it did. It was just, I had a lot of bad influences growing up. So I needed that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Ironically, my cousin, who is in the Army now, he's still currently serving. He used to work at Jiffy Lube. So I don't know if there's something
it's a thing.
Going on there. Yeah, interesting. But then, okay, so you became a sniper for the U.S. Army Rangers, and obviously, I don't know, how many kills do you have confirmed, unconfirmed? Like, what's the number?
In 3 months, it was 33 with about 14 probables, meaning I shot 14 other people in those 3 months, just never found the bodies. But the 33 confirmed during those 3.5 months in Afghanistan. My whole career, I'm not sure. I was a machine gunner before that, designated marksman, machine gun team leader. And there was only one deployment out of the 6 that I have where I didn't have to engage a target. So total, no idea. But within those 3 months as a sniper in Afghanistan was 33.
Well, and, whenever I kind of read about your story, obviously, I always think about the fact that, first of all, we are so fortunate to have people like you, Nick, that are willing to go out there and are willing to take out bad people, because it's an unfortunate reality of the world we live in, that there are people out there with horrible intentions that are their goal is to kill lots of other people, inflict harm, etc., whatever it might be, Americans, people around the world alike. When you first got in there and you first had, that first confirmed kill, I imagine that is a really tough thing to rationalize. And I know for you, it still haunts you to this day, you say, right?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I remember the dream that I had after the first guy. He was my ceiling fan, and the ceiling fan spun faster and faster until his limbs, ripped apart and all across my room. I was tied down in my bed for some odd reason in the dream, but it's like a reoccurring dream. And that was like the worst, I guess, dream that I've had. One of the things that haunts me or stays with me is as a sniper, losing one of my Rangers who came in to save us. And the anniversary of that is this week. So that mission happened like 2 days ago on that date, in 2009. So that's what sticks with me the most, is losing guys. Definitely.
No, of course. And I know the number of military personnel that I've talked to, again, some in my own family. This is, what you experienced, obviously, as a sniper is on a certain level, but like so many of our veterans, people come home and based on what they've seen, what they've experienced, what they've heard, there are a lot of issues that you return home after serving our country overseas with, whether it's, like a lack of direction, obviously PTSD, suicidal thoughts, alcoholism. I know that sort of for you had to deal with all of those things, right?
Oh yeah.
But you came back from that, and obviously I want to talk about what you're doing now, but why do you think you were able to overcome all of that?
To be honest, I think a lot, 98% of it has to do with family support and the birth of my son. Like that was I had to change. There was no way I was going to have a son who was going to meet that guy. Like that was, I look back at the old me and it's like, I don't know. I can relate to him. I know he's still there, but it's not conducive for family environment. I don't believe it's
And
safer.
so, yeah, no, I mean, I know that there are so many, look, I think it's 22 veterans a day commit suicide in America. And that's an awful number. You know, we obviously want that number to be zero, but perhaps it was because of what you experienced. And then this moment where, you know, your son is born and you say, I've got to change. I've got to change the direction of my life and how I operate. But you started writing, and you actually ended up writing a New York Times bestseller. It's called The Reaper, autobiography of one of the deadliest special ops snipers. You know, you obviously have figured out a way to overcome it. I'm sure it's not easy. You probably deal either every day or oftentimes with thoughts that kind of creep in. But what is the message, and what was kind of the goal of the book whenever you were writing it?
For me, it was getting out a lot of suppressed memories and emotions. I remember one night I was not in my best state of mind, and I called my dad, and he's made the suggestion of, you know, writing a journal. So it began as a journal, and that journal turned into this somewhat autobiography. And I took it to Las Vegas at a convention, and I met another author there, and I asked him how could I go about, you know, having someone read it or see it. So he got me in touch with the publishing company, St. Martin's Press, and we were on from there. But the healing process, I want to say, started when I began talking about it. And I wasn't sure where it was going to go or where it was going to lead to, but getting a lot of things that I was never able to talk about or just never, you know, really felt like talking about. I'm the type of guy that keeps a lot of things balled up inside. So I might not be the one to talk about it, but writing it seemed to help. I guess, an artistic type kind of guy. I went to side story. I went to college in middle school for art.
Oh, wow.
I quit, so that's where that.
Wait, what kind of art?
I draw. I draw and I paint. So that's like my first passion was doing that.
Can I say, so I also love to draw, but I do not love painting. And I'm actually very impressed when I meet people that can do both. For whatever reason, I like maybe it's like the precision or something I get when I draw. Like I can really direct things. When I'm painting something, I feel like I don't know what's going on. I got paint going everywhere. Stuff is running. It's not going to the place I want it. That's actually kind of cool that you do both. Do you still do, or you're still an artist to a degree?
Oh yes, I've had some of my art in a store out here in San Antonio, but I kind of like put that off to the side and continue to write books. But I still do keep up a pretty good portfolio, if you want to call it that. There's some stuff in there.
Fantastic. Well, obviously you wrote this book, maybe unintentionally. You wanted to get your thoughts out, and oftentimes just want to kind of keep things suppressed and keep it inside. But that sort of starts to fester after a while, especially if it's something you don't have anyone to talk with and kind of get it out. And so you got it all down on paper, you took it out there and it was published. Were you surprised by the response your book received? Because obviously it did very, very well.
I was very surprised. It was one of those things that, you know, as a kid, the first book I ever wrote, I was in the 6th grade with my best friend, and it was based off of Goosebumps, the old scary novel series for kids.
Yeah, I used to love those, yeah.
Oh yeah, so to see my book become a New York Times bestseller was something I could have never imagined. I wasn't a stellar student in school. You know, my mom would say I barely graduated or graduated by the skin of my teeth. So it was one of those things. So to have that title and to continue, you know, to write, it was kind of unexpected, but humbling at the same time. That where I come from, I don't see myself as being, you know, I'm just a regular guy. So having that, you know, accomplishment, I guess it does mean a lot. I really, to this day, I haven't taken the time to really think about it or what it really means. It's just maybe I don't know. I see myself as just where I'm from. I'm just a regular guy. I don't know.
No, I totally understand it. Where I feel the same way. Where I'm from, I'm just a normal girl that grew up in North Carolina. Here I am today. I've got a last name that I maybe never anticipated. But I totally hear what you're saying. Do you ever have veterans, though, that read your book or that hear your story, that kind of come up to you and feel like they want to talk to you about things that they're going through? Have you experienced any of that?
Oh, yes, all the time. I've ghostwritten for 3 other veterans who've had, issues and wanted, to get things on paper. It's a healing. I think it's a form of healing. It's a medicine. Writing is. For those especially who don't want to talk or find it uncomfortable or are still getting there. It took me some years to actually sit down with a psychiatrist or therapist and, talk things out. Years. And we're talking within the last year,
Wow.
So it's
amazing.
Oh yeah, writing is I think is the first step for some. It was for me, and I think for other veterans who approach me and just want to talk about things or how I got through different obstacles in my life after getting out or things that continue to haunt me. And literally, it's just like I said, I'm not anybody special. I think it's just step by step, day by day. There's an end scene, one of my favorite movies, in Rambo. And his commander asked Rambo, "How are you going to make it?" And he says, "Day by day." And that's one of the lines that kind of sticks with me. So it literally is day by day.
I love it. Well, that's good advice for all of us at all times, quite frankly, because sometimes things can feel crazy or overwhelming or whatever it is that we're all going through every day. You just take it day by day, sometimes hour by hour or minute by minute, depending on what's going on, but totally. So look, you're one of the deadliest snipers in history, a New York Times best-selling author, but more importantly, you had the honor of being an answer on Jeopardy! What was that like, Nick? That must have been amazing.
I didn't believe it. Someone messaged me on social media and said, "Hey man, you were just the answer our question on Jeopardy!" And I thought it was a metaphor for something. I didn't know what they meant by it. And then someone else, it slowly started to trickle in and people were messaging me. So I went on Jeopardy and typed it in on Google or YouTube. And I saw the clip where I was the question and answer. And it was my parents were here visiting. And I showed it to my parents and they were blown away by it. It's one of those things as a kid. You use the theme song to Jeopardy for playing around and stuff like that. Never would I've thought that my name or anything about me would be associated with that platform. But it's weird.
I feel like you really made it when you are referenced on Jeopardy or you're the answer in a crossword puzzle. You know what I mean? Like that's when like you really arrived. I'm still waiting, so I guess I'll keep holding my breath. But I also, in my mind, am going to be on Jeopardy one day as a contestant. Love Jeopardy, love trivia, love all of that stuff. So they could give me a call anytime. I'm ready to go. I'm sure they're dialing me as we speak.
Right.
But look, you're up to 5 published books now, I think. And I hear you're working on a new one as well. You have anything you want to tell us about it? What do we have to look forward to here?
Yes, so I just recently wrapped up our last month, I believe, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. My latest, I guess, installment to the closure to my autobiographies. My thoughts after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, how I feel about that whole situation. And obviously, you can, probably guess how I feel about it, just about like any other, veteran.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, just a lot of untold stories that I never, I guess, published or felt like talking about at the time. A lot of mistakes, a lot of the, lessons learned. It's all the good, the bad, the ugly of everything that I've seen overseas and encountered. A little culmination of that and a closure to my autobiographies. So that recently got published last month.
Wow.
So that's
all right.
On a future. I'm going into the fictional series a little bit more, taking a dive there. So working on that.
Wow. Do you feel pressure? I always wonder this, and I've never written a book. Although, believe me, there are a lot of stories that I would like to tell so that people could get maybe more of an accurate depiction of
If you
really
need a
things.
ghostwriter, I know somebody.
I know you do. But I wonder, do you feel pressure to, as soon as you finish one book, like, I got to start on the next thing? Because for me, I feel like that about everything I do. Like, if I finish a race, I do triathlons, right? I finish a race and I'm on this high. I'm like, I just finished. I feel great. But now I need to sign up for my next one. Is it like that when you write a book, or can you kind of just sit there and enjoy the moment? Or do you feel like you're ready to start working on the next one?
About midway through, I'm already having the idea of the next book. So I can't wait to finish the one I'm working on to start the next. And I might plan for like a month break, but it lasts for a week, if that, before I'm starting the next one. Like, there's a lot of unpublished books that I have written. I'm looking at a stack right now. I would say, like, total, all the books that I have out, I'm approaching 20 from self-published and major published. But there's like a solid stack of books that I haven't released yet. So it's a continuous, I guess, pursuit of something that may or may not be achievable. I don't know, but I'm going to keep trying, keep writing.
Well, I think you're achieving it. I don't think there's any question about that. And it feels like, Nick, you're doing maybe what you were born to do, quite frankly. If that is, the way you feel when you're in the midst of writing one book and you're already thinking about your next one, that's pretty good. I mean, a lot of people can't say that about most things that they do. Do you feel like you're doing kind of something you were meant to do?
I recently had that thought within the past few weeks, actually. So I always wanted to be a sniper and always wanted to join the military, but it's somewhere the underlying, I guess, story behind that was I've always wanted to be a storyteller, or I always wanted to tell stories. And now it's just finally, I guess, settling in to where I'm at the stage in my life where I can focus on telling a story, or know how to tell a story or formulate one. So it's always been there. I just never knew it would be something that I would enjoy doing as much as I, used to enjoy, shooting long distance and being sneaky, blending around in nature, like that. So
another thing you and my husband would get along great with. He loves the shooting sports, and he wins all kinds of awards for it. He never talks about it, but I'll go ahead and brag about him. He's very good, and I'm sure you guys would get along well. If we ever come down to San Antonio, we'll let you know. But I feel like, you really are doing something that obviously is helping a lot of people. You perhaps didn't intend to be in this position, but you are now. And what do your parents think? Obviously, they must be very proud of you.
Oh yeah, they have all my books, and they buy multiple copies and give them to my grandparents, and they keep some in a vault and stuff like that. I don't think that they ever saw it coming to this point. Everything was always military, and like I said, I was never a stellar student, straight A student. So to have multiple books out and have my parents read them, and I think it's hard for them to believe, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if they really have fully comprehended where all this has gone or come to, but it's
never know.
For everybody, I think.
You never know what could happen in America, I gotta say. I mean, it's an incredible country for that reason. And how old is your son now?
He is 5. He's 5.
Oh, and do you have any other kids, or just your son?
Just one. It's a
lot. One is a lot. I have 2. I can barely keep it together.
Boys are. Yeah, he's a little mini me, so one's enough for right now.
I love it. Well, I have to ask you what you think is the best part of America, and what do you think is the greatest threat to the future of our country, Nick?
The greatest thing, what I love the most about America, is the your pursuit to do whatever it is that makes you happy. There's a lot of countries where that's suppressed, and I think that having the ability to at least pursue that is a gift in its own that a lot of people are not fortunate enough to have. So the pursuit of happiness, I think, is one of the greatest gifts that we have in this country. Not being tied down to a set standard of you have to be this way or you will be this way. Whatever makes you happy is you have the right to pursue that. And I think that's one of the greatest things we have in this country. And I think the greatest threat would be an establishment or an entity that tries to take that away from individuals, their pursuit of happiness, their right to pursuit of happiness. that would be one of the greatest threats. I think once you take the people's right to pursue what it is that they want to, enjoy in life, once you take that away from people, you kind of have, you've already won the war, in my opinion. You've already won the war.
Amen to that. I mean, if you can't do what makes you happy, what's the point, right? So I totally hear that. Well, Nick, I want to say, congrats on everything you've done. Thank you for everything you've done for all of us as Americans. Keep up the great work. We'll look for the new books coming out. And I mean, I know who to call when I'm ready to write my story, although I feel like it's still going on. So I don't know, maybe I need a series like you have one day. We'll see.
There you go.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, Nicholas Irving, thank you again for joining us here on The Right View. And to everybody at home, as always, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next time for more.